Good evening, parents and boys. My name's Cameron Wigan. I'm the Dean of Primary here at Lauries, and I'm really looking forward to welcoming you all to the 2022 school year, which is starting obviously at the moment digitally from the 31st and in a face-to-face capacity from next week, Monday the 7th of Feb. The next part of the presentation for the information evening will be our Dean of Community and Identity, Mr. Paul Caulfield. Paul's going to lead us in prayer and acknowledgement of country, and then our college principal, Chris Ledbetter, will provide a welcome and talk to you about a few things, and then we'll get to the primary specific information shortly.
The community of St Lawrence's College acknowledges that this school stands on the sacred lands of the Turrbal and Yagara peoples. While there's been great change to this land over many generations, the story and spirit of the traditional owners will be written in the landscape. In the spirit of reconciliation, we honour and respect custodians past, present and emerging. We are grateful for the opportunity to join with them in continuing to nurture this land. Let us remember we are one in land, one in spirit and one in community. The theme for 2022 is One in the Spirit. The theme looks at us as a Catholic community and what unites us and makes us unique. The Spirit itself can take on many different meanings, and even those who may not be connected to a faith still have a spirit burning inside of them. Ronald Rolheiser says that everyone has a spirituality. Before we do anything religious, we must do something with the fire that burns inside of us. It is how we direct or channel this fire that becomes our spirituality. We direct or channel these desires or fire through the habits we choose to live by, leading to a greater integration of our minds, bodies and souls, or even God's, others and the cosmic world. At St Lawrence's College, we channel our passions to building an inclusive community, which continually seeks to create and renew respectful and compassionate relationships by which can all experience what it means to be fully human. While our students strive to find what stirs their soul, the Lauries Journey guides them, and this journey is not taken alone. It involves the whole community and ensures that everyone knows they are valued in the image and likeness of God. While our theme is One in the Spirit, our touchstone that we focus on this year is inclusive community. When Edmund Rice first set up his schools, it was about creating communities where everyone could be included. This was written about Edmund Rice in starting up his first schools. Edmund's Schools for the Rejects of Society was opened in the same area where those who were at the pinnacle of society lived. This seems hardly an accident. He was welcoming to these urchins, God's gentry, into this salubrious residential area as having a right to be there. Given such provocative action, it was but natural to expect that the inhabitant objected to his boys. From its very genesis, Rice's education was challenging and subversive. It deliberately attacked the class system that allocated people for life into categories set for them by convention or by those who with influence and power. Rice welcomed these children into his society as guests, having a rightful place to be there because of the common humanity that they all shared. And we pray together in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen. Almighty God, through your Holy Spirit, you created unity in the midst of diversity. We acknowledge that human diversity is an expression of your manifold love of your creation. We confess that in our brokenness as human beings, we turn diversity into a source of alienation, injustice, oppression and wounding. Empower us to recognise and celebrate differences as your great gift of the human family. Enable us to be architects of understanding, of respect and love. You, the one from whom on different paths all of us have come, to whom on different paths all of us are going. Make us strong in our heart in what unites us. Build bridges across what divides us. United, make us rejoice in our diversity, and at one in witness to your peace, a rainbow to your glory. Live Jesus in our hearts forever. In the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit. Amen.
I'd like to extend a warm welcome to all our parents and caregivers, and of course our students in grade 5 and 6. A particular welcome to all those new boys beginning in Year 5 and starting their Lauries Journey in 2022. You're all most welcome. I'd also like to thank our parents for the trust that you've shown in our school. We believe that education is a sacred trust, and I thank you very much for choosing St Lawrence's. You've made a good choice. I wanted to mention very briefly about some of the challenges we're having with COVID-19. I'd like to say that it is our wish to do as much as normal as we possibly can. We know in these times not everything can happen face-to-face, but in a community, face-to-face works and face-to-face is best. So if we can do those events, we certainly will. Mr Wigan will outline a little bit later about some of our commitments and the way we hope to do events at the college. So please be rest assured that we're doing everything we can to keep your sons safe and well within the guidelines of the government, but also to make sure the boys get an experience that they can remember either in their first year at Lauries in Year 5 or in their last year of primary in Year 6. And I welcome you all again. I just wanted to mention the importance of primary very briefly, and I wanted to touch on 5 specific areas. That's connection, inclusion, growth, pride and community. Boys achieve and do their best when they connect within a school community. And for us that happens in a variety of ways. It could be through the co-curricular program, maybe it's sport, maybe it's music, maybe it's involved in clubs such as robotics clubs. Connection's very important, so if your young man wants to get up in the morning and go to school, that's half the battle. The other connection that I'd ask them to consider is connection with their peers, who are sometimes where we learn the best from each other, as well as connections through our teaching staff. We pride ourselves on communication and connection, particularly as they begin their Lauries journey. Inclusion. Lauries has a policy of trying to meet the needs of as many boys as is possible. So inclusion means being good friends, it means being welcoming, and it means you accept diversity and difference. We hope that that's the same values that our families have as well. For me, I measure our school by the growth that we have in our students, in the way they behave, the way they interact, and also in how they learn. So growth is a measure for our young people here. So it's my hope that during Year 5 and 6, they continue to grow and become lifelong learners. Pride. Recently I spoke to a family of an old boy. There's been some tragedy in that family, and they spoke about the pride of their son being an old boy of the college, and they want their grandson to come to the college as well. I hope they're proud of their school, I hope they're proud of who they are, and I hope they're proud of their family. And last of all, I'd like to mention the value of community. Community teaches you to sacrifice yourself for the well-being of others. That's Catholic, that's Lauries. I hope they know and understand that when they walk out our doors. Mr Wigan will speak a little bit later about developing some strong habits here. Now, part of our initial program in Year 5 is looking at those habits and Year 6 continuing with them. So we need habits in learning, whether that be a program at home or following a program at school, but discipline in those habits is very important. Respect for self and others. So school uniform, how they address staff, how they address each other's members of the public is very important to us all. Collaboration. Today we know if you can't collaborate, you often are not as useful in the workforce as you once would have been. Collaboration is essential in everything we do. And our staff work very hard using our unique learning model to make sure that collaboration occurs in the classroom with their schoolwork as well. And discipline is very important, not in the old sense of the word, but discipline as in sacrificing something of a desire immediately for a longer term outcome. Discipline is essential for developing good young men. So I thank you for trusting our college, and I would like to look into the future and hope that your sons have an experience of the school like thousands of others of old boys have at this particular college. Our unique model of primary focuses on growth, on literacy and numeracy, and how boys learn. So welcome to our college. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
The start of the school year has obviously been modified and changed, and I just wanted to start off this recording by just making sure that parents understand that we are totally understanding of the fact that some of your circumstances may be proving quite difficult for you, that possibly some of the boys have not had an opportunity to engage in some of the modified learning at home, or that they might be a little bit stressed that they've missed some stuff. And I can assure you right now that you don't need to worry about that. There's more than enough time and plenty of opportunity for the boys to settle in properly and commence their learning on Monday, February 7, in that face-to-face format, where they'll get an opportunity to really meet their teachers and establish all those classroom routines properly. So if they were a little bit anxious around that, there's certainly no need to. Just with regards to the first day back at school, February 7, I did just want to run through a couple of the logistics for that day that are important. We are asking parents not to park and stop and hop out of the car. There are no parent presentations on that first morning. We are asking you that if you are bringing your son by car, to drop him off outside the uniform canteen area and just continue on your way. We'll have some senior boys down there to assist getting the boys to where they need to go. So Year 5 boys will all be coming directly to the chapel for a year level assembly. We'll welcome them over here and get them organised for their day. And Year 6 boys are asked just to go straight over to the primary precinct area, so over to the courtyard that they would have been familiar with going to every day last year. One reminder, particularly for Year 5 parents with regards to that first day, is it is super important that in that week, the 31st through to the 4th, that you do prioritise some practice for your sons on public transport. The Public Transport Buddies program will start on the very first afternoon, and we will be able to run that on Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday of the first week. Obviously with the delayed start for the senior boys, it's difficult to extend that as well. So if we could ask particularly Year 5 parents to really prioritise some practice for that in that week, that would be very helpful for all of us. When the boys do return, there are about 3 or 4 things that I just want to bring to your attention just to make sure that you do understand the bigger picture parts of the school. When the boys return, we are moving this year to 4 72-minute lessons per day, as opposed to the 650s that our Year 6 boys would have been familiar with. Obviously, by limiting the number of transitions during the day, we do have a campus where lots of boys do need to move around. The benefits of that obviously are substantial for the older boys, but even for our primary boys, we think that the minimalised transitions between lessons will definitely help them. Teachers will be able to obviously run some fairly deep learning processes and different phases of lessons within that 72 minutes that sometimes wasn't possible when the bell would ring after 50 minutes and the boys would need to move somewhere else. So we'll again obviously educate the boys and help them through that process in the first couple of weeks, but for parents that are familiar with Lauries, if you do notice that change and you're not sure, there will be 1 lesson before morning tea, 2 lessons in the middle of the day, and then a further one after lunch. The balance of subject allocations and the time spent on subjects remains the same. It's just the number of lessons that's changed. The other program that I need to bring to your attention is our Tuesday sports/activities afternoon. That will still run in semester 1 this year, so in term 1 and term 2. And that's an opportunity on a Tuesday from lunchtime until 3 o'clock for some additional physical education and sports training, and for boys not involved in the major team sports that are happening in either term 1 or term 2. They'll be allocated to some activity groups here at school, and that will start from effectively what is week 2 when the boys are back at school, but week 4. And from that point in time, all boys, whether they're involved in sport or not, all Year 5 and 6 boys will wear their house uniform to school from Tuesday, just on Tuesdays. And then in other lessons or other days where they have phys ed lessons, they will need to bring their sports gear with them in a bag and wear their normal school uniform. A couple of other things that I guess probably are fairly pertinent at the moment. Our first priority is to try and give every boy the best teaching and learning experience he can have every single day here at school, but I do need to, I guess, flag the fact that with potential illness to both staff and also to students potentially, and obviously we hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, we'll still have that same core priority of trying to make sure that they get some really good continuity in their learning and that we can provide the best possible program that we can. So I guess probably for parents it's really just important to notice or to take note of the fact that there potentially may be some flexibility required and some modifications to the way that we run lessons here at school, particularly in term 1, but we'll certainly be doing everything we possibly can to ensure the boys still have an excellent start to the year. With potential change and even just generally, I can't stress enough how important it is for all parents in both year levels to have the college app on their phone. There is a lot of communication that comes out from St Lawrence's across all the different departments. If you have the app and you have the settings set to all the different activities and year level specific and house specific things that your son or sons are involved in, you will be well informed. I can't, I guess, emphasise that enough. Newsletters, updates, changes in programs, all of those sorts of things all get communicated to parents, and it will happen generally via the app in the first instance, and often with a follow-up email also. So please keep on top of that communication. I do understand that it's a lot, but it is the best way of making sure that everyone knows what's happening in such a busy school. If you have had a bit of a browse through the school calendar, you would notice that there's a lot of events that are on during the year. Again, the app will be an opportunity for you to keep up to date with what's on and when things are happening. We will, exactly like we have the last 2 years, we'll do everything that we possibly can to ensure that events can go ahead if they possibly can. So again, they may need to be modified or changed depending on what restrictions may be in place at the time, but we're very much about trying to modify before we cancel, and if we don't even need to make any modifications and we can run events, they'll go ahead. So I encourage you to participate in as many of those as you can, and also, like I said, just to keep an eye out as they're advertised throughout the year. The last thing I wanted to bring to your attention probably seems a little simple and a little bit boring, but it is important and stressful for parents, and that is around the idea of lost property. I can't, I guess, encourage you enough to make sure that your son's gear is labelled. They do lose hats, they do lose shirts, they do lose lunch boxes. 90% of the time we are able to return those. It certainly makes the process quicker and easier if things are labelled. If your son does lose anything, in the first instance, if you'd ask him to come to the primary office, there's a lost property box there. We do store things for a while and try and return them. Put displays out in the courtyard to try and get boys to come and collect things, but yeah, if you could make sure that things are labelled, that would be great. And in the first instance, ask your son to come and check. That would be terrific. Finally, before we get to the year level specific stuff, the college theme for this year is One in the Spirit. And as we always do, we try and give the boys an understanding of what that realistically looks like for them on a daily, weekly, and over the course of the year, I guess, basis. Nearly all of the themes eventually or in some way tie back to the idea of boys doing the best that they can, but to be outward looking and try and build our community, build positive relationships, and I guess key words in there around one and spirit certainly help, I guess, direct again that fact of we want the community to be one, we want them to be, I guess, spiritual and outward looking and look for opportunities to support others as well. So that will be unpacked with them over the course of the year, and it will certainly be something that runs through all of our primary events and other communication throughout the course of the year. So I guess please keep in mind that if you do need to communicate with staff in the first few weeks, email is a really good way to do that because they are generally quite busy during the day, but you're welcome to make a phone call to the primary office or to email teachers. But we will obviously be understanding that the start of the year particularly may be a little bit messy and interrupted, and we'll do everything we can to support your sons and your families at this end. Please stay safe and take care over these next few weeks, and we look forward to seeing the boys here at school on Monday, February 7, ready, I guess, to start the year in the face-to-face capacity that we've missed out on in the first couple of weeks. So the next two parts of the presentation will be if you're a Year 5 parent from Michael Sharkey, and if you're a Year 6 parent, Danny O'Toole is the head of Year 6 they'll be providing that specific year level information for you now. Take care and see you soon. Thank you.
Good evening once again. I'd like to echo Cameron Wiggins' welcome to all new and continuing families for Year 5 in 2022. My name is Michael Sharkey and I'm the head of Year 5 and also the home class teacher for 5 Black. I'm joined this year by a very professional teaching and learning team, including for 5 Gold, Mrs Alicia Sheehan, for 5 Maroon, Mr Nick Herford, for 5 Red, Miss Kate Flanagan, 5 Silver, Mr Reece Carlton, and leading the boys in 5 White, we have Mr Jock Scarl. We also have a number of additional teachers in Year 5, including Mrs Kath Peritan, Mrs Susan Dean, Miss Katie Jordan, and our Year 5 teacher aide is Mrs Sonia Catelli, and she'll also be joined at various times by a couple of other teacher aides across the year level. My role for you this evening is just to outline some of the general expectations and some of the specifics that you might want to know at the beginning of the year. Obviously won't be an exhaustive coverage, and it's just meant to give you some of the information you need to start the year off well. Look, generally in Year 5, our expectations of our students is really about promoting with them and in them respect and good manners. We're encouraging the boys, understanding that they've come from a variety of different school contexts, the opportunity to be organised and to take responsibility as learners, to encourage in them and develop in them their resilience, both as learners and as good people, and also to promote really the ownership of their learning and to give them the language and the skills to assist with that. We really do emphasise in Year 5 the importance of honesty with our boys. We appreciate that they are young learners, they're young boys, and we really hope that they learn from the experiences that they have both relationally and also as academics or as students in our classrooms. Some of the sentence starters that we've heard over the years and our experience has taught us are a few of the following, and we try to discourage the boys using these where possible. So sentence starters like, Mum, Dad, I didn't know. Sir or Miss didn't tell me. Someone stole my, but no one showed me. I didn't know I had to do that. No one gave me that information. I forgot or didn't bother. I wasn't listening. I left it somewhere. I was late back from lunch. I wasn't paying attention, or I left it on the bus. Look, we appreciate that things that can go wrong, and we do just try to help the boys to really take ownership of the mistakes that get made and to be doing their very best to be honest and deal with things positively. The early focus areas for the boys when they both do the online program next week and more specifically when they arrive at school from the 7th of February is really about the importance of first impressions. We appreciate and really want the boys to have an opportunity to make a fresh start at their new school. We want them to be able to adapt to the Lauries way. For example, with the new routines and the new expectations placed on them. We want the boys to be responsible and to be organised. We are a community, and we really do emphasise the importance of getting to know one another, teachers getting to know students, students getting to know one another, and students getting to know their teachers as well. And obviously, beyond the classroom, getting to know families also. Really important that we promote respect and being supportive of one another. I think you'll find from the get-go that Lauries is a very busy place, and we do say that we hit the ground running when we start each year and also when we begin each term. We really do encourage all of our students, all of our families to get involved where possible, to find their niche and to share their gifts and talents. And we really do want the boys to have fun and to fall in love with their new school. Much of our work in the first 3 to 4 weeks is about the formation of our students, to help them understand who we are as a school, our background as an Edmund Rice school particularly, and to help them understand the touchstones as that basis for an education at St Lawrence's College. We also want to help them develop in their sense of themselves as learners. And one of the key ways that we do that is to share the Lauries learning dispositions, the key attributes that we have developed and we have found that boys learn best with. And just to give you a quick snapshot, we ask all of our learners to be engaged, to be actively engaged in the learning process. We want them to build their resilience through making mistakes and being challenged. We want them to be persistent as learners and to use strategies to keep going. We want them to develop their ability to be self-directed, because so much information is communicated and shared with the boys to set them up for success. We want them over time to become more self-directed and independent learners. And also, most importantly, to be reflective learners, because we learn best when we reflect on what we've learned. There will be challenges during the year. We do say that our learners will find themselves at different times in the learning pit. And we challenge the boys by saying it's those who do the thinking that will do the learning. So we don't want the boys to feel like they are passengers in the learning process, but rather they are taking responsibility and being active in the learning process. We do expect our boys to find themselves at various levels of understanding and skills around any concept throughout the year. And so this is what we characterise as the learning pit. And we will give the boys strategies to help themselves out of the learning pit, to help themselves when they find themselves struggling with a concept. All mistakes are recognised and appreciated at St Lawrence's, because we know the students who are willing to make mistakes are actually engaged and doing their best. And all mistakes are expected, respected, they'll be inspected and corrected, so that the boys understand where they've gone wrong and can improve. Through our experience as a staff over the years, there are a number of Year 5 specific issues that your boys will need to be aware of and you will need to be aware of as a family. Settling in takes time. Year 5 is a transition year, and the staff are very patient and very supportive, and we ask you to please be patient and encourage your sons to be patient as well. They can't possibly know everything in the first week, nor do we expect them to. So things will roll out slowly so that we can get the best out of the boys over the year. Friendships and building positive relationships is a key issue for our students, and we do have a Lauries Journey pastoral care program that looks at that issue and helps the boys to deal with relationship issues that might come up, and to provide them with some strategies to build positively those key friendships that they need during the year. Obviously, this can be fluid, and when things change, it's very helpful for staff to be informed, especially if parents are aware, so that we can try and help them and support them here at school. Organisation is absolutely key, so we will continually reinforce and remind the boys about the importance of using diaries, checking calendars, checking timetables that are on Onenote, and also hard copy timetables, making the best possible use of their tablets, and ensuring that their uniforms and their gear is all organised well in advance so they have everything that they need for school. We really do promote the importance of the boys being involved in the school community. So if there is a special skill or a gift or a talent that they have, an area of interest, we encourage them, if it's not something that's on offer here at school, for them to come and talk to staff about the possibility of finding ways to share that. Really important that the boys communicate little things with home and also with teachers and with friends before they become big issues. And they'll often hear staff talking about sharing issues before they become big issues. A problem shared is a problem halved. We really want the boys to deal with issues positively when things go wrong, and we will encourage that. We do let the kids make mistakes. That's really important, really critical for their learning. And with increasing access to digital learning platforms, we'll be encouraging our boys to be good digital citizens, to behave in a manner online that we would expect from them face-to-face with other people, and obviously respect underpinning their engagement online, very importantly. In terms of who will be available to support your sons this year, we appreciate here at Lauries that it takes a village to raise a child, and it's really important that your sons have multiple people supporting them as their safety net. So his friends, obviously, we would hope that he builds positive friendships and he has the opportunity to communicate with his friends, both those exciting, positive things that happen and maybe those times when he's finding things a little bit more challenging. We have a series of Year 11 peer mentors, Grade 11 students who have been trained in supporting younger students in our school community. They'll come into the classrooms on a Monday and a Friday, and we'll do some work with peer mentors around getting to know your sons so that they feel, if necessary, they can open up to those other students. He has his classroom teachers as a very important priority port of call. Myself as the head of year for any ongoing persistent issues. I'm obviously more than happy to lend support in that regard. Mr. Wigan as our head of primary school, and our very well trained school counselling team is available as well. At St Lawrence's and in Year 5, we appreciate that boys learn best when they feel safe to take risks, and so we provide structures around the management of behaviours in the classrooms to try and get the best out of the boys, but also to hold them accountable for when things go wrong. Our behaviour management program follows what we call positive psychology methodology. We have a focus that behaviours are a choice. Sometimes, quite often in fact, the boys might not be completely aware of the choices that they're making behaviourally, so it's our job to try and guide them and positively support them in that regard. We really do emphasise the ownership of behaviours and the consequences that go with them. So positive behaviours are affirmed, recognised and rewarded, and negative behaviours are held accountable. So our core philosophy is really about positive reinforcement. That saying that you catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So our teachers are very adept at trying to recognise the positives that go on and really emphasise and reinforce the importance of those, but recognising at the same time we do have to manage negative behaviours in the classroom. We take an approach that's one more of reflection rather than detention, so to speak of. So our boys, when things go wrong, they will be asked to reflect on their behaviours, and we use what's called a restorative justices framework to try and assist the boys and give them a structure around reflecting on those behaviours and what they might do differently next time. We do try and recognise as often as possible, not just in the classroom, but also as a primary school, the great behaviours and the great participation that's happening by our students. So we do have weekly Students of the Week and Lauries Journey Awards, most importantly. We affirm the boys in our classroom. All classes use Class Dojo as a platform for recognising the positive behaviours and I think redirecting the negative behaviours that we'd like to have the boys think about. So Class Dojo is a digital platform that's used. It's set up by teachers where we can identify 8 to 10 key behaviours that we'd like to positively reinforce and perhaps 4 or 5 behaviours that we would like to see the boys redirect. So when the boys are talking about Class Dojos and being recognised on that, you have a bit of an awareness of it. Accountability for behaviours is very important as well, where they are negative. So each class uses what's called an AFL system chart, and like the sport AFL, we're looking at the goal setup. So we've got our 2 goals in the middle, and all of the boys would begin with their name in the middle between the goals at the start of each day, because we believe that every day is a new day and every boy deserves the right to a fresh start each day, and regardless of the things that have happened previously. So every boy's kicking goals at the beginning of the day, and when things go wrong in the classroom, teachers will use a series of different teacher behaviours to manage those, from just giving a verbal reminder initially, to if there's a repetition of a negative behaviour, perhaps at an appropriate time when other students are working, taking the student aside and redirecting or reminding them of the desired behaviours. And if it happens on a third occasion, teachers use the rule of three, and they might then direct a student to move their name from the middle goals to a behind. And if a student is placed on a behind, then they would know that they would be doing a reflection activity at the next break, be it morning tea or lunchtime. And if they do a reflection activity, the boys answer 5 different questions to get them thinking about those behaviours and how they can improve on them. And the boys would bring that sheet home, have a discussion about that with parents, have that signed, and that's brought back to school the next day. Our classrooms are open, flexible learning spaces where your sons will encounter a myriad of different teaching styles, both individual teacher facilitation, team teaching, co-teaching in different varieties, and then they might also have up to 6 or 7 different adults in the room facilitating their learning in an open learning space or in smaller what we call inquiry-based learning groups, or in different learning groups in different subject areas. The main reason for our open flexible learning space is to deprivatise the practice of our teachers. We have these open spaces where students will see teachers visibly sharing their own thinking. They'll hear and see multiple perspectives on a variety of different subject areas and concepts, and we really do want to promote ourselves as a community of learners. Rather than it all being one-way traffic, the boys understand that learning is a relational process. Our classroom environments focus on collaboration, a very important skill, I'm sure you'd agree, as the boys move forward in their learning. We emphasise active learning versus passive learning. So those who do the thinking do the learning, rather than being passengers in the learning process. We provide opportunities for the boys to inquire on a variety of different topics and to develop their 21st century learning skills. Again, collaboration being of the utmost importance, but communication being key as well, and using digital learning platforms to support that. Our flexible learning spaces also have a real key feature of trying to help the boys develop as learners. So we develop their learning assets and their dispositions. We give them strategies to help them be resilient learners. We give them strategies to help them be persistent in their learning. We emphasise the importance of engaging, making a start, being self-directed and independent when called upon to do so as learners, and being reflective at the end of lessons, and we have structures in place to help them with that, and also being reflective at the end of units of work. We encourage a growth mindset. These are young learners and they're not expected to know everything. So there might be things that they don't know, and we would say that they don't know them yet. So rather than the boys necessarily throwing their hands up in the air when something's going wrong in their learning, we try to redirect that into growth mindset language. We are visible learning classrooms, so all boys should know what they are learning, they should know why they are learning it, they should know where they are going on their learning journey, they should know how to get there, and they should know what success looks like. So we use visible learning practices to assist all of our students in getting the best out of their schoolwork. Once again, starting Year 5 is a transition time. It is an academic transition for our students as well. and we appreciate, recognise and respect that our students are at a variety of different levels in terms of their knowledge and skills in the ACARA curriculum. Our students need time to understand and adapt to our new routines and ways of working in the classroom. We really emphasise the importance of helping the boys to establish routines for success in their learning. It's not something that happens quickly. The Lauries Journey educational experience is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So Year 5 is foundational, and we are very slowly trying to set a platform for that entire Lauries Journey as best as we possibly can. We use diagnostic assessments at the beginning of Year 5 to establish a baseline for where our students are at in the variety of subject areas, but most importantly, in their literacy and numeracy. We use a triangulation of data that uses the progressive achievement tests in both reading and mathematics. We have our boys do an e-writing diagnostic assessment to get a baseline on their writing skills, and we also do a warp test. For many of your boys, this may be their first experience of being assessed using an A to E achievement scale. And we also assess our boys in terms of their effort in the classroom, because we recognise the importance of effort in all of our students, regardless of their academic achievement. And I just wanted to take this moment to remind families and students that a C result given on any assessment task or in any subject is considered to be at the expected achievement level for our students. Our lessons are all very well structured and ably guided and facilitated by our professional teachers. In English, our lessons are structured according to the substrands of the English curriculum in ACARA. So we have reading groups established to develop the boys' textual knowledge. We have writing groups set up to establish the boys and develop the boys' visual knowledge in their English literacy skills. We also have genre writing lessons to develop their word and visual knowledge. We have spelling lessons to develop, again, the vocabulary and word knowledge of our students, and we do literacy rotations groups to develop the boys' punctuation and grammar writing mechanics skills. In mathematics, we follow what's called flipped learning practices. Rather than the traditional classroom where teachers get up for the first 5 or 10 minutes and introduce the boys cold to a new concept, we use the flipped learning model where we video a teacher introducing the boys to a new concept, the rule, some examples, and the boys, ahead of coming into that classroom for their homework, will watch that video. They might do some of their own worked examples, and they will write down 3 or 4 bullet point important notes about the success criteria for the given concept in mathematics. So the boys come with a prior established understanding of the learning they're about to do, which means we can very quickly go over the concept again and have boys practicing their knowledge and skills as soon as possible. We follow the iMaths program, so our boys will do a combination of digital learning and workbook learning as well. Drill practice really important for consolidating the boys' understanding in mathematics. For maths, we do also divide our boys, stream our boys into ability groupings, So they will do a pre-test of our maths concepts each term, and we'll use the pre-test results and also data from our PAT maths testing, the diagnostic testing, to put the boys into ability groupings. And that will be an opportunity for teachers to really drill down at ability levels and give the right level of support to students in their maths work. In our other subject areas, in our HASS curriculum, our science curriculum and our religion curriculum, we follow what's called focused learning cycles. And we teach each of our science, HASS and religion areas in consecutive 3-week cycles. And we've developed this over the last couple of years because we had found previously that our students were experiencing a little bit of stress at the end of terms with all of these concurrent assignments and assessment tasks happening at the same time. So it tends to alleviate any of that undue assessment loading and the stress that goes with it. In term 1, religion will be the first FLC that the boys will be taught. HAS, which is our history curriculum in term 1, will be the second FLC that we teach, and then science will be the third FLC, but that actually won't be introduced until term 2 because of time lost at the beginning of term 1. Now, in conjunction with the written bookwork that boys will do both in class and potentially at home for homework, we have about a 50-50 mix of written work and online learning work that our boys do. The primary online learning platform or teaching and learning platform that the boys will use to access their resources and to do schoolwork is on Microsoft Onenote. Onenote is our one-stop shop for all of the Year 5 concepts, resources and activities that boys need to do. That's where the boys will engage with their units of work, and because they've got access to that at home, you have the opportunity as parents to see what's on there as well. When boys are away from school, it offers that continuity of learning because the activities are on there as well, and that's especially important during these times if there's any extended at-home learning. As well as the activities that boys will do for classroom work or homework, there's also links to additional online resources there to support the boys. An example of that might be Style, which is a primary science learning platform that we use, IXL Maths, IXL English, just to name a couple. Just so that you know very generally what Onenote looks like, you can see a snapshot on this slide here that basically shows you, looking at the screen left to right, the layout. That you can see from left to right, we've got our class notebook. So every class, 5 black and gold, 5 maroon and red, 5 silver and white, all have their own specific class notebook. And in that notebook, you'll see things like weekly organisation information. We have a live timetable that's updated frequently. As you'd appreciate, the fixed timetable's great, but because we're a busy school, so many things happening all the time, quite often we'll have to amend the timetable. And by having that on Onenote, the boys have got the opportunity on a daily basis just to have a bit of a preview and see what's coming up, especially on the next day, in case there's any new organisational details or new gear that they might need to bring into school. So all of the sections are on the left-hand side. You can then see each of the pages as we work from left to right, and then on the right-hand side you can see the content for each of the pages. As well as Onenote, we also use Microsoft Teams, and this is our primary communication channel for sharing information with each of our home classes. Can I just emphasise the importance of the boys and families as well looking at the class notice board in Onenote, because there is important information that's shared in there, as well as on Microsoft Teams. Our homework program is an important way of consolidating the learning that happens in the classroom, and we have a variety of roles and responsibilities, and so there is a letter that will come home very early when the boys return to face-to-face learning that spells out the different roles and responsibilities for teachers, students and parents, and we just ask that you have a read of that and sign that document as well. The students will sign it, teachers will sign it, and we ask if a parent could sign it also and return it to school. I won't go into detail about that, but just generally, each week the boys will come home with a weekly homework overview, and it spells out elements of homework that the boys must do that are compulsory, and some optional activities that the boys can do for homework as well. So just so that you're aware, the boys must watch their flipped videos for maths, and they must copy down into their OneNote space for homework, for maths, 3 or 4 bullet points of success criteria or key information to help them understand that concept. So teachers will be checking that. Also, they need to do IXL maths activities, IXL English activities. We expect the boys to do 20 minutes of regular reading each night to build, both their vocabulary and their knowledge and understanding of the structures of a variety of different texts. Really important that the boys are doing times table practice each night as well, and I'll discuss shortly some key online resources that we use for that. And we've also put down, just to try and have a little bit of a partnership between home and school, that the boys list a chore or chores that they're fulfilling at home as well to take some responsibility for families. There's also some optional activities that the boys can do as well. They'll have access to an online comprehension platform called Read Theory, and this is a levelled comprehension activity that they can do, as well as, really importantly, accessing Typing Club. And Typing Club is an online typing practice platform, and we find that with the boys using digital platforms more and more and using their laptops more and more each day at school, that speed is a really important factor, and awareness of the QWERTY keyboard really has to be developed. So we'd encourage strongly, even though it's optional, that boys try and do that at least a couple of times each week. We do affirm the boys for their homework efforts, so we do something called Homework Incredibilis, and we'll send information home about this. I won't go into too much detail, but if the boys get 5 Homework Incredibilises, they get a HI ticket, a Homework Incredibilis ticket, that they can cash in for a week off homework. Just a little something to try and motivate and engage the boys with the homework as well. And can I just emphasise again, homework shouldn't be something that's too onerous, and if you find that it's something that's taking a really, really long time, we'd ask that you communicate to your son's teacher via an email or a short note in the diary, most importantly. The homework sites that the boys will access for maths, I spoke about IXL maths, and you can see on this slide that IXL maths is arranged according to different subjects and codes, and we'll provide those codes on OneNote in the homework space for the boys to access. And just so that you're aware, we do this retrospectively, so the concepts that we teach, say, in week 4 for maths, they will be the homework concepts for the boys in week 5, and so on and so forth. So that happens retrospectively. And that's a way of distributing the practice and consolidation of concepts so that the boys get to revisit it over and over again. The same for IXL English. The homework concepts and codes are arranged for the boys to access. We also have number facts practice. We use a site called Top Marks for the boys to access times tables practice. So you can access that site and you can see it's arranged according to times tables or daily 10, and we encourage the boys to try and practice that as much as possible, and that's something that we use in class as well for warm-ups for maths lessons. You can also see the Typing Club slide and see the general layout and what the expectations are there for the boys. Can I just give you some practical tips to assist with starting off the year really well? Cameron mentioned it earlier, but if you could please make sure that all of the boys' property, all of the boys' belongings are labelled with their names, and in particular, all aspects of uniforms and the boys' lunchboxes. Returning lunchboxes to students is made a whole lot easier when names are very clearly printed on them. Can we remind the boys to charge their laptop each night at home? That's absolutely critical. And make sure that it goes home each night from school and comes back to school the next morning. The school diary should also be going home each night. And if you could check that for any additional little notes that might be inside of there, I'd definitely appreciate that. Can you please encourage the boys to make sure that they have a reading book, a novel or a short novella at school each day? We will provide opportunities for them to borrow at the school library, but if you can be just checking in with them, asking about that and encouraging them to bring that to school each day, that would be really appreciated, or leave a book here at school as well. can you please make sure that the boys are checking their timetable on Onenote each night, just to check when their specialist lessons are on and any gear that they might require for that. The homework overview needs to be signed each week, and if you could sign that ahead of the Friday is when we check homework for each of the boys. Please make sure, and I know it seems very common sense, but we get very busy at different times as parents, just double check your transport arrangements with your sons. It's a cause of concern and stress for them at school if they're not sure how they're getting home in the afternoon. So if you could please make sure they're doubly aware of that, I'd really appreciate it. If you could just double check the school's haircut and uniform policy as well, so that the boys are coming to school, they are neatly attired, and also haircuts are not drawing any undue attention to them. I'd definitely appreciate that. Throughout semester 1, the boys wear their house uniform, their PE uniform, to school every Tuesday. And grade 5 boys are also introduced to the Year 5 music program, and they will do Year 5 music immersion on a day 5. So every second Friday, they will go to their various groups, either band, strings orchestra, guitar ensemble, or musicianship, and information will come from the music department about that. We really do appreciate that our relationship with home is a sacred trust, that you are the primary educators of your sons, and we are here to support you in that role as professional educators. And I do thank you for the trust that you have endowed in us in looking after your sons. Our relationship is based on partnership. We have the boys' best interests and their best learning outcomes at heart all of the time. Can I please encourage open lines of communication between home and school? Just a word for the wise, just be conscious of using email to raise significant issues. If you find yourself spending a long time writing an email and it's going into paragraph after paragraph, could I just genuinely and out of good faith encourage you to perhaps schedule an appointment or make a phone call with your son's home class teacher or myself, and I often find that nothing's lost in translation then. So significant issues, I'd really encourage scheduling an appointment or a phone call, please. The emails and diaries are the preferred lines of communication for short notes, brief reminders, please, just to inform teachers of day-to-day little messages. There are a number of highlights throughout this year, and we do have obviously a number of planned events that are specific to Year 5. I'll leave you to have a look at that slide so that you can have a bit of a snapshot of some of the highlights. Can I just remind you about the need for patience and flexibility, because during these times, some of the things that we plan may not go ahead. We certainly do our very best where it's safe to ensure that they do, and we'll give you plenty of information and notice ahead of time. One more point on school communication. Can I just again reiterate what Cameron said earlier about the college app? If you don't have the college app yet, could you please make sure that you download that to your mobile phone? It is fantastic. Live notifications and push notifications come out on a daily basis, and you can filter that and create the settings specific to your son's year level or their involvement in the co-curricular program. And I'd strongly encourage that so that you have up-to-date information. Obviously, each week a college newsletter will come out that is action-packed with lots of information. You will receive regular sports information as well via the app and the school newsletter. We have a primary-specific supplement that comes out on a fortnightly basis with primary-specific information. And we also have the official school Facebook and Twitter accounts, which are an opportunity for you to see more information about the school and the everyday goings-on. Can I say thank you very much? I look forward to connecting with your sons on Teams next week during our couple of check-in meetings, and also, most importantly, with them face-to-face when they return to school on the 7th of February. Can I remind you that our first day on the 7th of February, our first meeting with students begins in the college chapel, and we'll have a special assembly for Year 5s just to welcome them and also to share some important information. I'm looking forward, as the head of Year 5, to getting to know as many families as I possibly can, and I'd reiterate again the importance of welcoming you to your school, whether you are new here or a continuing family. Thank you.
G'day Year 6 families, and welcome to our Parent Information Evening, done slightly differently this year. I hope you've taken the opportunity to press pause on the video after Chris and also Cameron have spoken and filled up your popcorn and grabbed another drink. And I hope you can sit back and hopefully find this next half hour or so informative but also mildly entertaining. I must admit, I was a bit nervous when I found out we're doing this style of delivery because I had heard that in delivering on TV it does add a couple of kilos to the frame, so I was a bit sad about that. But then conversely I also heard it adds a bit more hair to one's head, so I'm actually a little bit excited by that by the same time. So I think also for many it's going to be a blessing in disguise. So the IT guys I've heard are going to be putting subtitles down the bottom of my speech because I have been known to speak quite quickly. So, and my only request is that there be some canned laughter when I believe there should be some joke. So without any further ado, we will get started. So on this first slide here, families, you'll see our teaching staff for Year 6 in 2022. Going from left to right there, you'll see Mr. Ranieri. Mr. Ranieri will be helping out with our learning support boys in Term 1, and then we'll be welcoming him back into the classroom in Term 2 moving forward. Next to Rob, we're going from left to right here. Next to Basil is Rob. Rob Bingham will be working with Mr. Adam Stokes, who's over in the far right in the profile picture. He's away at school at this point in time, and they'll be working in silver and white. We then move into maroon and red, which is Mrs. Alana Treno and also Miss Beck Campbell, who are to my right, okay? And then we move into 6 black and gold, which is myself as the head of year, and also Jack Cabassi. Over on our far right are probably our two most important people in the primary in Year 6, and those are our teacher aides, Natasha Vaitsis and also Jacob Retchford. In the top right-hand corner is Mrs. Periton, Kath Periton, and Mrs. Periton pops into all our classes, and predominantly in black and gold when she takes over me for some periods, but she predominantly will be working with the boys in the field of English. So we've got a very happy team there. I hope that we'll be just as happy come November when we take another photo. I do need to recognise and acknowledge the promotion of Beck and also Jack. We do have a promotion and relegation system here at Lauries, so we have promoted those guys from Year 5, so I congratulate them. And the rest of the teachers actually maintained their spots in Year 6, so they did just enough to avoid relegation this year. I'll begin by introducing you to the general expectations of Year 6. You'll see bolded are some key words there. Words that certainly I would believe would be utilised in Year 5, and they'll be utilised throughout their time at the college, about respect, about being organised and responsible, showing resilience, having an ownership of learning, and also being leaders in the primary. So in regards to respect, we encourage the boys to really be conscious and to check themselves about how they are speaking to each other and also to staff members and visiting people to the college. We know that Year 5 is a challenging year in getting settled in, and a big year of focusing on being organised, and certainly that continues in Year 6. So we'd hope that having had a year now at the school, the boys are familiar with our systems and our routines and taking a bit more independence in regards to organise themselves on a daily basis. In regards to resilience, we want the boys to ensure that when things do go wrong, and they most likely will, that they don't see it as doom and gloom, that they put things into a perspective and to understand that there will be a wave of ups and downs throughout any year, and developing skills to keep those things in check. In regards to leadership, as I said, I'll talk further in the PowerPoint about the fact that I see all Year 6 students as leaders of the primary. On this next slide, you'll see that we have goals for Year 6 2022, and these goals are actually formed by the teachers at our recent meeting that we had. There are 3 clear things that we want to ensure happen this year to make the environment for the boys an experience for the boys that they will love and cherish this year, and hopefully for their families as well. The first one is I want to be very clear that I see Year 6 as the end of primary and not an extension of middle school. I believe at times, sometimes we can get in the habit of saying, well, next year in Year 7, or when you get to high school, that won't be acceptable, things like that. And I think they can sometimes play on the minds of the boys and also families. So we are very conscious of making sure that we see Year 6 as a celebration of the end of their primary schooling and not just an extension or getting them ready, per se, for their middle school and high school experience. They've got plenty of time in Year 7 to start to transition and enjoy their middle school years. The second point you'll see there is a statement, I suppose a motto, if you will, that we wish to sort of follow and to ensure that, again, your children are challenged and make the most of their experience this year. And that is that we believe that we want the boys to believe that they can learn, that they want to learn, and most importantly, that they own their learning. And I'll explore that a bit further throughout the PowerPoint. That statement there will be in every classroom, and we'll continue to refer back to that as well. And finally, from a teacher's perspective, we want to challenge, we want to engage, and we want to transform the learning habits of your sons as well. So they've been on a 5 or 6 year journey now for their learning, and they've got many more years to go as lifelong learners. And so we want to really, I suppose, expose them to opportunities to, I suppose, not only just change, but to develop, to refine, to reform some of their learning habits. I'm not sure last year at Year 5 whether Mr Michael Sharkey, as head of Year 5, spoke about the war that rages on between us as families, mums and dads, and also teachers and the students themselves. So this war has been raging on since the dawn of education. Because what you may not know as parents is that when boys come to school and they haven't had something done, often you are the first to be blamed. And no doubt when things go wrong at school, us teachers are the first to be blamed. So it's really important. You'll see there some sentence starters that we really want to discourage from our Year 6 boys. And the first one, the last one, describe that in particular detail. So mum and dad didn't, and sir or miss didn't tell me. That's the eastern and the western front. We've really got to have each other's backs as we encourage the boys to take responsibility for their learning. The next one there, someone stole, is really meaning I lost. Very rarely in my time here at Lauries have many things been stolen by other students. More often than not, it has been misplaced or lost by the students. No one showed me is really a code word for is I didn't listen. Okay, so again, there are lots of opportunities in the classrooms to ensure that they've got multiple ways of gaining access to information and resources. I didn't know I had to. Again, probably didn't look for things, or again, probably not listening as intently as one needs to. And no one gave me is, again, I didn't ask for something. So in that in particular, when boys are in and out of the classrooms, whether it be for music lessons and so on, and they may be missing a part of a lesson, again, it's really important that the boys in Year 6 are taking responsibility and really just checking in with their classmates, with their teacher, to see if they've missed anything of importance. On our next slide here, we are focusing on what will our first week look like when we get back to face-to-face, hopefully on the 7th of February. In that first week, we've actually looked at the timetable and we've been able to sort of change things around a little bit to ensure that whilst we have missed a bit of time through our online optional learning program, they're able to sort of get started from that first week onwards. So in that first week, we'll be looking at our Lauries Journey, our dispositions. So I'll talk about those in a moment. But again, it's important that we recognise that whilst they are coming from Year 5, and many are exposed already to what our dispositions are and they're familiar with them, it's important that we understand that what they look like in a classroom perspective. And whilst these boys are moving from Year 5 into Year 6, they are working with different students, different teachers, so it's important that we all get on the same page there. We'll be setting up our routines, our expectations, getting used to the classroom. There'll be 3 buzzwords that they'll be hearing a lot throughout this year, which are integrity, respect, and positive relationships. So we'll be breaking those down and get an understanding, a shared understanding of what that looks like. We'll be starting our launching of our units of work, and that will be starting on Wednesday. So those first 2 days are generally going to be just settling in and getting to know you activities. And then finally, of course, we'll be welcoming 11 new families to our community. So for those families who are watching this now, I hope that you feel very welcome. And I know that your sons are going to be very popular on their very first day. They'll be the new shiny toy that everyone wants to play with. And one thing I know that Lauries boys do well is they welcome boys into their friendships, they welcome them into their community. So I hope that those boys are excited about beginning their Lauries journey this year. On this slide here, you just see a reminder of our learning dispositions regarding being self-directed, being persistent, being resilient, being engaged, and being persistent as well. So with these particular dispositions, this is our shared language that we often use within the classrooms when we're addressing issues with the boys and encourage them again to be taking responsibility of their learning. So when it comes to Lauries Journey Awards on our primary assemblies, we often are tailoring the awards to this sort of language. So we're looking for opportunities to see where boys have been resilient, have been engaged, have been persistent, and we want to formally acknowledge that at our assemblies. On this next slide here, you'll see 3 books. The way in which we actually introduce our dispositions is through storytelling. So we'll be using these 3 stories here, wonderful stories, to really tear apart and look for opportunities to see where the different characters showed those dispositions, and then we'll be looking at some activities to reinforce that as well. So again, I want to reinforce the fact that whilst this may not be new to the boys, it's important that we begin the year to refresh and to set those standards and pick up on where we left off from. On this slide here, you'll see a leadership statement that I want all Year 6s to embrace and will be sharing, because like I said earlier, I see all Year 6 boys as the leaders of the primary. And while some will be formally acknowledged as primary leaders with badges and so on and have extra responsibility, it is up to each of the year boys in Year 6 to set the standards to drive the culture of our primary in 2022. I have tied in with the college theme of one in the spirit. So the statement reads, in 2022, Year 6 will lead as one in the spirit with integrity, act with respect, and will build positive relationships. So again, we'll be using not just the first week and those beginning to know you activities, but I'll be using assemblies, and we'll be regularly referring back to these key buzzwords throughout the year. So again, the boys are very familiar with them, and then embrace them and utilise them. On this next slide, and you'll be very familiar for those returning families, that Onenote is indeed our one-stop shop for all our curriculum work, which again is going to be very important this year with the uncertainty of what this year looks like, in particular term 1 with boys being away and so on. So all resources for all our subjects will be placed on Onenote. You'll find videos, you'll find PowerPoints, you'll find worksheets. Boys will be uploading work onto Onenote. So Onenote is indeed a system that is very user-friendly, we believe, and one that we find utilises in the classroom to ensure that all boys, regardless of where they're at, and whether they be in the classroom or at home, can maintain their work. So what does Onenote look like? On this slide here, you just see a little snapshot of what my class looked like last year. One of the things I will point out on this Onenote is that we do a weekly live timetable. In all my years of teaching here at Lauries, I don't think any day or any week has actually gone to the timetable. So we are regularly each week updating our timetable to ensure that it is most up-to-date and accurate as possible. So that's something I'll be really encouraging the boys to be checking each morning, that they are just looking at to see exactly what's coming up to ensure they've got any resources that might need for those particular lessons, because things do change very quickly here at Lauries. In terms of this next slide now, we move on to our Year 6 Behaviour Management. So of course, whenever you gather 170 odd boys, or people for that matter, adults in particular, together, there are going to be some ups and downs. And no doubt this year there will be some ups and downs for some of our students as we go through the school year. It's important, as these hiccups occur, that we see these as learning opportunities. And that's certainly from our perspective, from a school's perspective, is we take the opportunity to say, okay, what went wrong? Why did it go wrong? And how can we move on from this? Who have we perhaps impacted upon? And certainly one of my most favourite parts of my role is having those restorative justice discussions with the boys. And often, in fact, I'm actually a little bit teary as I watch the boys share when things have gone wrong, the impact that the issue had on them. And for the person to see how the other person is feeling and seeing that and feeling those emotions. They can get quite emotional conversations, and they are things that we prioritise. They take time. So as a family, I want to ensure you that when things do go wrong, that we follow the process through very thoroughly. I will often speak to lots of boys if I need to get as better story as I can of what actually did take place. And then, as I said, we'll then go through that process of ensuring that relationships are restored and that we can all move along positively from this experience. At the end of the day, we acknowledge that behaviour is a choice. My little catchphrase that I often tell the boys is, be where you need to be and do what you need to do. If you generally are in the right spot and you're trying to do the right thing, then generally each day will be a positive experience for you. Okay? But if you are in the wrong place or you have done something that isn't quite what we were expecting, therefore there needs to be some sort of correction. We try to do that in, as I said, in a nurturing way as best as possible. We are a school that focuses on positive reinforcement, and as you'll see in the coming slides there, we've got Dojo points, we have Lauries Journey awards. We're looking to acknowledge good behaviours when we see them, and we applaud that regularly. One thing that, and it's a very slight change in terms of, I know when things have gone wrong and boys in the past may have received a detention, or maybe you at home are sitting there thinking, well, I had a few detentions when I was at school. It's a slight change of word. often I don't use the word detention, we use the word reflection. The opportunity, because detention, I believe, has a bit of a connotation of being forced to do something and it's more of a no real point to it, whereas a reflection is an opportunity to fill out a sheet and, as I said before, reflect on what went wrong and how can we improve and make sure that hopefully that the same mistake doesn't happen again. On these next couple of slides, you'll see the Dojo system. Okay, so you may hear your sons come home and talk about dojos, but you may not be familiar with what it looks like. So the whole class is on the one dojo screen, and they've got little icons there, and beside the icon are little point scoring. And the boys are very competitive. They are very interested in knowing how many dojo points they've got, because how many dojo points they get also relates to how many tickets they receive that go into our end-of-term raffles, which are a big thing for the boys. They look forward to hopefully having their name put out and having a chance to win one of the many prizes on offer. So if we now look at the next two slides, you'll see that we're able to award dojo points, which comes with a nice little tone when the boys receive those positive dojo points, and we can actually tailor it down to very specific elements, such as the learning dispositions, and all the classroom teachers also have a bit of fun with that as well, in terms of making up some silly sort of focuses in terms of what wins you dojo points and what have you. Conversely, when things don't go quite right, we can also take away points. And that's met with a bit of a game show sort of a dum-dum sort of a sound. So that's the sound of death for many boys, because they don't want to lose dojo points, because, as I said before, they want to accrue as many as they can possibly get. So again, we're looking for things there like noisy transitions, not having any equipment, not having a laptop signed. These types of things, are charged. These types of things might ensue some loss of dojo points. Our AFL system on this slide here, you'll see that this is our general behaviour system. So each day the boys begin in the goals, and the focus is for them to maintain that throughout each day. Now, if they are given a warning and the behaviour persists, then they are moved to a behind. So for those people who know AFL, they move to the outside the goal area on the board there. And that is met with a reflection, okay? Now, on the odd occasion when something is more severe than that, they will then be kicking the ball out of bounds, and that would generally mean some immediate conversations at home with either myself or the classroom teacher. Overwhelmingly, the boys are found in those goals, and again, they're working towards an end-of-term goal of getting to the last week of term, having achieved goals throughout the actual term. They're allowed a couple slip-ups, so they're allowed one or two behinds along the way, to qualify for that reward, where they can bring us some treats and sweets and enjoy a movie together, which I know they all look forward to. So again, that just gives you a bit of a snapshot of what that looks like, and that could be some lines of communication at home, is you talking with your son saying, hey, how's your dojos looking at the moment? Have you had any behinds? When the boys know that you know about the systems, again, just helps reinforce that. Each year we do look at very specific areas of focus for each year level. So I'm sure Michael Sharkey last year spoke about things to expect in year 5, and I'm just going to share some of these issues or focuses that might pop up as year 6 students now. So the boys in year 5 generally tend to still hang around their same friends from their old primary school, and as the year progresses that does branch out. We're now throwing the boys into brand new classrooms, and therefore opportunities to create more friendships. And that can obviously create a little bit of anxiety for some boys, because they might feel as though that a friend they did have has moved on to another friendship group. So those friendship dynamics. So again, we talk about that in our classrooms, looking for opportunities to engage with like-minded people, whether it be in your sporting teams, in the classroom, playing chess at lunchtimes or anything like that. There's lots of opportunities to find like-minded people. So, but you can expect this year that there will be some changes in your son's friendship dynamics. Online engagement is a really interesting one, especially considering now we, over the last couple of years, have had more online learning at home and so on. And it's really important in particular, I do want to stress, it's moved now from email to now Teams, where boys are just sort of using Teams as a way of sort of having general conversation. And that's okay if a channel has been set up for that purpose, but if it's a curriculum channel, so for example, they're in the maths channel or the English channel, then it's really important that the only comments that are happening on those teams is related to work, asking for either help or contributing to discussions that are happening in the classroom. So it's really important, if you can at home, just stress that. We'll certainly be stressing that inside the classroom, because there are on the odd occasion where boys have been banned from using Teams because they haven't been able to use it appropriately. And again, that becomes more of a year 6 issue. So very important that boys know that with that great power comes great responsibility in terms of using online stuff correctly. I spoke earlier about organisation and independence, so maybe mums and dads have had a big role to play in that in Year 5. We want you guys to just take a back seat if you can, and really palm that on to your sons and getting themselves organised for each day. Involvement in our school community. So again, the challenge is to find ways in which to connect to the school. So for some boys, they may have taken things very easily last year in Year 5 and thinking, maybe just connected to the school through maybe one sport. Maybe this year I want to challenge them to try something new, get out of their comfort zone, or get involved in urban farm, or give debating a go, or maybe try it for the chess team. Little things that maybe they heard about throughout the year of Year 5, but didn't really maybe have the courage or the interest of last year to have a go. So I really encourage the boys to find new ways to connect with the college this year. Communicating things regularly with teachers is also a great idea for the boys. We don't want to get to the end of term 3 or term 4 and sitting down with boys and reflecting on the year and to know that they had an issue that had actually started in term 1 or term 2, and certainly from a parent perspective as well. So if we can communicate things earlier rather than later, it always allows for a smoother passage of solution. Certainly, research tells us that children of your son's age, around that sort of 11, 12, the numbers of anxiety, with boys experiencing anxiety, have grown certainly over the last few years. So not to just sort of bury our heads in the sand and to sort of say that doesn't happen here at Lauries. Of course, there are boys sitting at home right now who will be feeling quite anxious about returning to school. And so to address that, there are 3 key things that we're going to be looking at doing this year that promote mindfulness and gratitude and also self-compassion, because I think at times we can be our own worst enemies. We can really be quite harsh on ourselves and yet forgiving of other people. So I'll be looking at opportunities throughout the year, through my assemblies and so on, to talk to the boys and guide the boys through how they can be kind to themselves, to not put too much pressure on themselves, to look for the good in things and being grateful for the things that they actually have. And I think certainly during times of lockdown and times of isolation learning, that becomes even more important. I think I've already spoken before about dealing with issues positively, not holding grudges, letting go of things. So it's important when discussions are had that if they have been corrected, that they are solved at that point in time, the bridge is mended, and then we move forward positively. Okay, and certainly we do want the boys to look for opportunities to make mistakes as well. In terms of, like I said before, they're going to be lots of ups and downs, but in terms of in the classroom environments, putting their hand up, being prepared to be a little bit vulnerable, maybe not having the right answer, but being engaged and involved in classroom discussions might be a challenge for some boys. So we really want to encourage the boys to be vulnerable and being able to be open to making mistakes and not knowing something. These next couple of slides are more just a bit of a review and reminder as to the format of our classrooms and the purpose behind that. So you will know that we have classrooms that are quite big and also with large numbers, up to 55, 56 students in the one room with 2 teachers. And the reason why we have moved to that format of teaching and learning is because we understand what the future looks like for these boys and that we want to prepare them for what 21st century learning skills look like. So engage in terms of team teaching, working in big spaces, we feel that encourages more active learning rather than passive learning. So passive learning is certainly how when I was sitting in a Year 6 classroom, learned when I was back in the day, in the 80s, where the teacher told you everything, you wrote down notes, you just filled out worksheets in a booklet and so on, moved on to the next lesson. So in our format, in our style of learning, we want to focus on inquiry, we want to encourage the boys to wonder, to be curious, to launch ideas, and then for the boys to go out and find out information and then report back. So they're really active in that learning process. Those skills that are on the screen now on this slide for those 21st century in terms of looking at being critical thinkers, being collaborative, being a communicator and also a creator. In terms of when it comes to our planning of our lessons in our units, we are regularly looking for opportunities where the boys will be able to do, if not all, but most of those skills in each of our lessons. So again, it is most likely that your sons will have up to 5 different careers and up to 17 different jobs, is what experts are predicting for your sons as they grow through to be middle-aged men in through their 30s and 40s and so on. So that climate is certainly very different to back in the day where you went to university or got a trade and that was your job and you did that for the 30, 40 years, retired happily and so on. So the future does look different, and so therefore it's important that we are preparing your sons as best as possible. So again, through our spaces, through our flexible arrangements in our classrooms, through focusing our units of work to tailor to these skills, we believe that we are preparing your sons as best as possible. On this slide here, you'll hear the boys talking about being in the pit, and the pit is a good thing. So the pit, of course, means that you're finding something a little bit, you're struggling with something, haven't quite grasped something, you're needing a little bit of help. If your son doesn't end up in the pit this year, then I would say that we haven't challenged your son anywhere near as much as he needed to be, and that he needs to be communicating that with his teachers. And as parents, you obviously would hopefully be able to just palm some information onto the parents saying, look, Johnny's coming home, feeling that he's just coasting, that seems to be coping with work very easily. That might be the case, or it might be a very different perspective to what the classroom teacher has. But we want to encourage the boys to challenge themselves, throw themselves to be vulnerable, get into that pit, and then look for ways to get out of that pit. And in our classrooms, we've got peer support, we've got masterclasses led by our teachers, we've got all our resources online on our Onenote, we've got flip videos, in particular for our maths as well. So there's lots of resources out there at the boys' fingertips and opportunities to help support. So through that, hopefully we'll get the boys out of the pit, and again, they will learn some valuable learning experiences from that. On this next slide here, you'll just see a general breakdown of what our classroom lessons look like and specialist classes. So I don't think I need to really go over this information in great detail, but you will see down the bottom left-hand corner where religion, science and HASS are all linked in as what we call our flexible learning sequences, okay, FLCs. So when you look at your son's timetable, you'll see the word FLC, and that is where for that particular 2 or 3 weeks we are focusing on religion, or whether it be science or whether it be HASS. In terms of, on this slide here, you'll see our whole school approach that was initiated last year, that we'll be continuing with this year. And again, it's just another way of connecting with home. If you're familiar with this language, when you jump in the car or when the boys come home, you can be asking your questions, some sons, about what are you learning, what did you learn about today, why were you learning that, and what did you do to actually demonstrate that learning. So hopefully the boys will be able to reflect on that and say, well, we learned about this, we learned that because we need to know this for this next topic that we're learning about, and what we did in class was this particular activity. So by knowing the map of where they're learning and how they're learning, again, is hopefully going to steer them in the right direction for success. So on this slide here, you will see our FLC sequence for semester 1. You will notice that there are 5 units. Traditionally, we'll have 6, we'll have 2 of each particular subject. In light of the missing that week and a half of school in week 1 and week 2, I've been a little bit creative and I've actually moved geography into semester 1 and pushed history, which is traditionally in semester 1, into semester 2. And I've been able to merge our geography unit so that it's actually just one unit with a bit more detail in it. So it means that we aren't missing out on any particular units. So the curriculum that we were going to teach in Year 6 will be maintained. I'm aware that some schools in particular maybe just are cutting out particular units here and there. We wanted to avoid that as best as possible, and I think we've come up with a good solution to do that. On this next slide here, you will receive the curriculum term overview, and that will be sent out by Mrs. Katie Jordan, who is our curriculum leader, and that will be coming out in the first couple of weeks when boys return back to school face-to-face. It's a wonderful resource. Again, it gives you a general overview of what the actual term looks like for each of our subjects, when assessment will be due, what type of assessment there will be. So again, that would be something that would be great to print out and put out on the fridge. And joining that on the fridge would hopefully be a class timetable which will be sent home in the first week of face-to-face learning. This is just an example of what our classroom timetable looks like in 6 black and 6 gold. You will notice, of course, the differences this year to last year is that we've now moved to 4 periods of 72 minutes. So we have 1 period, and then we have morning tea, 2 periods, lunch, and then our final period of the day. So again, it is a little bit different, but again, by having it visible on the fridge, as a family, you can be aware of when specialist lessons are coming up, when HB uniforms need to be ready for, and so on. I'm just now going to briefly just speak about our English and our maths programs, just so again, so you get a bit of a feel for what the term will look like in the semester and the year. On this slide here, you'll see the comprehensive program that we actually have with our English. We look at literacy rotations, where we're looking at specific skills to do with grammar and punctuation and writing and reading. We have reading groups where the boys break away into small groups led by teachers and read and are explicitly taught reading skills. We have writing groups, okay, which are led by Mrs. Periton in particular, where again we break down into small groups and we look at texts and structures and to genre tasks. We have our genre units, so each term we have a focus genre text type, and then we also have a spelling program where we're looking at a spelling topic or concept each particular week. So all that joins and combines into our English program. Much of the time when we are focusing on genre, as you see in this slide here, we do look at gradual release of responsibility. So there's a lot of that sort of I do as a teacher, we do as a class, and then you have a go. A lot of that is formed also by deconstructing and joint constructing. So there's a lot of work where the boys can learn from each other and also learn from teachers, and when we do think aloud, so they can actually hear how adults, what they are thinking when they're constructing sentences and so on. Very powerful tool that hopefully then, when they're sitting down and doing their work, they can actually reflect on and start to implement as well. In terms of our math structure is very similar to last year, where we'll have 2 topics for maths each week, and that will only be followed by 1 supplement lesson where we do our maths group. So last year we did have 2 of those, but with our condensed format with our time timing now, we now have combined 2 of those into 1 particular lesson. With that, of course, we have our online resources of iExcel, which you'll be using regularly. We have a booklet which the boys will be working through as well. At the end of each term, we'll have a week full of revision where we revise the concepts of that particular term. They'll have a revision booklet as well, prior to then having our assessment tasks, which, if you saw your son's test last year, you'll notice is broken down into at level, above level, and well above style questions. So what that means is we would generally hope that most of the cohort are able to achieve the at level, and then we encourage the boys to really push themselves to achieve the above and then well above, which is slightly harder in sort of their style of questioning. As well, every cycle, which is the 2 weeks here at Lauries, we'll be doing trackers, which is an assessment task only worth 10% of their grade, but it gives us a bit of a checklist of how the boys are coping with the concepts as we teach them throughout the cycles. On this slide here, you'll just see some of the resources. Like I said, we look at iMaths. We've got our flip teaching, so the boys each week, as you remember from last year, need to be watching the videos created by the teachers that introduce the concept. And can I please stress the importance that the boys do that prior to walking into the classroom to do their maths lesson, because that gives them a good understanding, hopefully, a base understanding that we can then develop on as we move into our lesson. The middle picture on this slide here is on Style, which is an online program. We get the boys at each start of each term to do a readiness test. And this actually tests the concepts that they're covering that term. So by no means are we expecting the boys to ace this. We expect there to see a lot of red, which you can see on this particular slide. And what that means is when we go to teach this particular concept, we know in particular which subject, which students we may need to be inviting down to masterclass in advance. On this next slide here, it just showcases what a masterclass looks like for maths and also our maths groups. So with our maths groups, we do look at ability-based in those. They are based on ability in terms of we look at how the boys are coping with their maths, and they are fluid, they do change from term to term. So we've got an extension group, we've got a consolidation group, and we do have 2 groups where we're looking to support them and to focus on the key concepts of this particular term and this particular week that we're just focusing on. With the maths masterclasses, can I again encourage, like I mentioned earlier, to if a student is not sure on a concept, that they do show that initiative to then make their way down to a masterclass where they do get that explicit teaching from the teacher as well. So sometimes the boys might think, oh, I don't want to go down to the carpet, I might seem to be someone who doesn't know something. I can promise you the environment in the classroom is a very supportive one, and boys who sometimes get A's will come down to the carpet and vice versa. So it's important that all boys have that courage to take that step to seek that support when needed. In terms of our homework on this slide here, you'll see that there's very little change from last year in Year 5. They still need to do iExcel for maths and English. They still need to be doing regular reading. They need to be watching their flip videos like I spoke about before. They need to be listing their chores, so again to help make sure they're taking aboard some responsibility at home. And there are also some optionals for those boys who have enough time, which again are typing club and also read theory. Now you'll see there is a ticket on the actual slide there. If the boys have done their work to a high standard, then they get a HI, as you remember from last year, and once they get 5 of those, they hand them in and they get a week off homework, which they can use at their discretion. I know that many boys save them up for the end of term 4, and so they end up having term 4 off for a majority of their homework. So again, we reward those boys not just for having their homework done, they do need to be doing extra iExcel, and again making sure that everything is signed and so on. On this slide here, I'm not going to go through this, but you can expect this letter to go home in the very first week, and it just goes through the roles and responsibilities of homework. And we see that everyone involved in your son's education has got a role to play. As teachers, it explains what we need to do to ensure that your son's homework is a success. As parents, what do you need to do? And then as students, what do the boys need to do? So again, we encourage you to read through this as a family and then to sign that off so we can see that that has actually happened. These next few slides here are just some general slides to again expose you to the websites that the boys will generally be using in regards to homework. You'll see on this slide here we've got our iExcel, Maths and English. On our next slide, we then got our hit the button. Again, so important. A lot of the time people think, oh, they're in year 6, they should know their times tables by now, and don't do that regular practice. It is so important throughout year 6 they're doing that regular practice to help with speed and efficiency. Read theory and also typing club on these next 2 slides here, again, are optional. They are utilised in class, but in terms of, in particular, reading is very important for their comprehension skills, which is the major focus for us as a whole school in 2022. And for the typing, I cannot stress, from someone who's not a very good typer, the importance of developing those good habits from an early age. So the boys, when they're a bit older and they're typing up their assignments, they're not there sitting there with their one finger typing away and their mates are out having a great time and going to the movies together, that they're able to quickly and efficiently type the work that they're doing. Only a few more slides to go here, families, and this next slide here is just some practical tips that are just going to help a smooth transition into year 6. It's really important that when they arrive to school that their belongings are labelled. Every year, boys rock up and they've got no names on pencils, on books and things like that. So as a family, if we can just take some responsibility to ensure that they are labelled, that way when boys do leave pencils behind or books, that they're easily returned. It's really important that the boys get into that habit of charging their laptops every night. So whether it be after dinner, they plug it into a central location in the house so that way they're not on it late at night in their bedrooms. Super important. We do use their laptops regularly throughout the day, and it can be quite a pain for the boys if they don't have their laptop charged. The diary should be going home every night. Again, that can be a means of communication for families as well. But we will be moving, especially in semester 2, term 4, into boys writing down regular homework. So that way they're getting that skill of being able to organise themselves rather than having the actual the sheet of paper that they'll be using in semester 1. The timetable, as I said earlier, displaying on the fridge. Getting that homework overview signed. The boys can have the greatest homework and they're tracking for a HI, but if it's not signed, they do not get a HI. So that can lead to a few upset faces when the boys see that they have missed out. So again, just making sure you're on top of that, having a conversation with your sons about homework. Transport arrangements, obviously most of the boys will be familiar with that from last year. But again, if for a reason you have moved location or are new families, really important the boys are familiar with how they're getting home each day in advance. So it's very hard to get messages sometimes to boys at the end of the day if they're at specialist classes. So again, the earlier you can communicate any changes to home class teachers will be appreciated. The college's haircut policy is always one in year 6 that I do need to sort of have a chat with some boys and families about. Mr. Wigan always talks about having a term haircut and then a holiday haircut. A term haircut means it's just a very boring haircut that doesn't bring any attention. So the general ones where people do have a bit of a problem with is where one on the side of the head is actually really short and the other side is actually quite long, or it's a one blade or a very short blade in particular. So I know from someone who's actually follically challenged, that's probably makes no sense me giving advice about haircuts. But to ensure again that boys aren't embarrassed, because if boys do not have haircuts that meet the policy, they do need to wear hats in the classroom. We don't want that to happen, but that can happen from time. So to avoid that unnecessary sort of arrangement, again, just making sure that during the term that the boys are getting a very simple haircut that's just nice, neat and tidy. Remembering on Tuesdays that the boys are to wear their PE uniform to school, and they can wear that all day on Tuesdays during semester 1. If your son has got HBE as his subject for a semester and it is in period 1, they can actually get changed before school. They do need to wear their formal uniform to school. However, if they do have HBE in period 4, which is the last period of the day this year, they are able to wear their PE uniform home on those particular days. In terms of communication, on this slide here, you'll notice that, again, the best way of communicating is most definitely through email for most classroom teachers. Some teachers do prefer notes in the diary. Those teachers will, of course, communicate those requirements specifically to their home classes. But I do want to acknowledge again, a bit like I spoke before about us forging the war together, that the partnership between home and school is an important one. We do see parents as a partner of the teachers. We do want to work together and make that a real positive relationship. So in terms of our open line of communication, when things do go wrong, at times we do receive emails. Often they're quite late at night. Often they're filled with triple exclamation marks, maybe capitalised words or red font. There is only one way any person who receives an email like that is probably going to take that. So it's really important, again, that if issues are arising, that we go about that the right way. Make a phone call, ask to speak to myself or the home class teachers, or a short little email, and we'll get back to you, and we can sit down and we'll have a chat about how we can move forward with that particular issue. On this slide here, you'll see some highlights for 2022. I won't go through them all, but you can see, fingers crossed, that the boys will get to experience their first walkathon, as well as their first college athletics carnival. Having had those cancelled for the last couple of years, I really am hopeful. They're great events on the calendar. We've got Mother's Day, Father's Days. Let's again hope that we can invite you families into for those celebrations. And if we do, can I just put a bit of a flag out there in advance that we do have a PowerPoint presentation of photos of mums and dads for those particular events, and it's really wonderful if the dad can organise the one for the mum and the mum do one for the dad, and vice versa. So again, that's just something to be mindful of moving forward. We do have a personal development unit that the boys, I know from last experience, are very much looking forward to. That is what we'd normally call our sexual health unit. So that will be generally in term 2 or 3, and all depending on our access to our presenter. We do have someone who comes in and presents to the boys outside of the school, Miss Jennifer Mason, who does a fantastic job in relating what needs to be known for the boys in a very friendly and calm and also humorous way. There is a parent information evening prior to that. Not that you as parents probably need to know too much about how all that sort of stuff works, but it is good for you to come in and understand what exactly is spoken about. So when that information is sent out, I really do encourage you to come along to that particular session. And in particular, we've got our Year 6 Leadership Liturgy that will be in those first few weeks of Term 1. And one that I know the boys have been training all last year for, which is the South East Queensland Asian Handball Championships of the World, a Year 6 tradition that the boys will look forward to at the end of the year in Term 4. You'll notice that on this next slide here, the school communication is very thorough. We've got newsletters from both the college, from Cameron, and also that involves also the sports information these days. There's the college app, which if you haven't downloaded that, please ensure that you have updated that and also clicked on the things that you need to be involved with, whether it be certain sports or music programs. And I will send out regular email updates. So that might be a slight change from Year 5. I do like to just send an email out, just letting you know what's happening in Year 6. I am someone who has always said, why say something in 50 words when you can say it in 500? So I have been told to nestle down with a glass of wine or a couple of beers. I believe is the best way to get through those emails. But the reason why I do that is, again, just to keep you involved, keep you in the loop. And it's also my way of counselling myself as I deal with the losses of the Broncos. Hopefully this year will be a better year for the Bronx. And this slide here, again, I don't need to go into great detail, but again, for you as parents to access information, you know that you've got Parent Lounge, where you can see what assessment is coming up for the boys. You see results as well as they've been released. There's also Student Cafe, which boys have access to similarly, where they can access their results and see what assessment is coming up. And that is all done through Progressive Webbook. This second last slide here, families, is all relation to finding a balance for your sons. So I was very lucky a few years ago to go to a conference over in Canada, and one of the presenters spoke about the fact that as parents, we tend to want to do so much for our kids. We want to get them involved in swimming. We want to get them to learn an instrument. We want them to be participating in all these activities outside of school that can, over time, be quite tiresome for the boys, for our sons and also daughters. So her advice is to actually allow your sons to be like dolphins. And when you look at dolphins, she uses the acronym POD, which means allow plenty of time for your sons to still play, to spend time with others, and to have that downtime. So as we move into a very busy year here at Lauries, and Lauries is a very busy and hectic place, allow the boys the opportunity to just be themselves and not overcommit. That there's lots of opportunities throughout their next 7 years to try lots of different sports and activities. They don't have to do all of them all in the one term and all in the 1 year. So looking for the opportunity to get good sleep, regular sleep, to ensure that when they're arriving each day at school, they're feeling great, they're eating well, and so that they can be the best version of themselves. And I think that again goes back to that mindset of being mindful and being grateful, okay, and also a bit of self-compassion. So that's something I'll be speaking to the boys about, just being wary of overcommitting themselves. In this last slide here, families, there are lots of people here at Lauries who are here to help support your sons. So we've got counsellors, obviously we've got his peers, his friends, We have our peer mentors. We've also got classroom teachers, myself and also Cameron. So please, if at any stage your son is feeling like he needs support, reach out and we'll certainly meet his needs. And there is never a problem that's never too big to solve. And certainly by getting in and coming together, solutions are certainly very easy to move forward with. So as I thank you, I look forward to your support this year. I look forward to actually meeting you in person. I think the next time I'll see you, I won't have this beard that's going off in a couple of weeks' time. I look forward to saying g'day. Please, if you see me at sport or around the school, come up and say hello, introduce yourself. I'm really looking forward to working with your sons this year in 2022.